not include the planning horizon. This is just the construction period. So the farmers in Pakistan that need electricity today and that need flood protection today will be long dead by the time that over-budget dam comes about, because minimum 10 years would have gone by before this thing happens. So we need solutions that can be done much more quickly. We have to think about that. Finally, it's a challenge of benefit shortfalls. And I've put the example of oil wells here because people who work in the oil industry are seen, have a reputation of being ruthless project managers, but that's not a well-deserved reputation. Because even in oil wells, 35% less oil than what you predicted as your business case is quite common. And that's a report from Goldman Sachs. So the end result is very, very often, unless these projects are managed incredibly well, you end up with unviable projects, even though they may look viable and even though they may look very attractive, like the Channel Tunnel in the UK. It is in fact so bad that the first-year projection of the Channel Tunnel for the ridership on the trains has yet to be met, nearly 25 years on, or 20, 25 years on. So there's a huge amount of discrepancy between what people thought they were going to get and what they're actually getting. This is our infrastructure performance map collected with colleagues at Oxford. And these are over 5,000 observations across various asset classes, from roads on one end to Olympics on the other. Olympics, of course, have the dubious honor of being sort of the worst performing asset class, with 156% average cost overrun, and not a single Olympics in world's history has ever come in on budget. But they've all come in on time. So even the Athens Olympics took place at the stipulated dates, which may suggest that there's some tension between cost and time. But what this suggests is different asset classes have different performance, and you have to be very, very careful what asset class you're getting into. So Rome, for example, the mayor of Rome recently announced that she was not going to do, and she was not going to bid for the Olympics for Rome because she did not think her city could manage these cost overruns. But roads you can build. Some of the energy projects you can build, but you just have to be careful what asset class you're getting into. So let's uncover, and let's do this jointly, why is this happening? So let me show you very quickly a chart from our data. It's from my colleague, Professor Flubier. And what the chart shows are rail projects from our data set. On the right axis are cost overruns. So anything that comes on 1 over there is on budget. Anything that exceeds 1 on the right axis, i.e. is to the right of 1, is a cost overrun. On the y-axis are ridership shortfalls. So anything that is 1 on the y-axis is on budget. So if you predicted 100 riders to show up, all 100 of them showed up. Anything above 1 on the y-axis is a benefit excess. So you predicted 100, but 120 people showed up. Anything below 1 is a ridership shortfall. So fewer people than what you thought actually showed up. And we've given a rather generous bullseye to this target. It's about a 20% margin of error on either side. How many projects do you see in the bullseye? 0. It's empty. It's like a desert. How many projects do you see that have had large cost overruns and large ridership shortfalls? A majority. Sorry? It's from a 2005 paper by Flyberg et al., published in the Journal of American Planning Association. Of the countries, these are all over the world, but a lot of European and North American railways. So this is, by the way, developed country data. I think there's some developing country data as well. What I would like you to do in the next 5 minutes is please put your phones down and have a chat on why is this happening. I'd like you to come up with an explanation for why is this happening. We'll start with the lady on table 15. 5 minutes.
Restricted to rail only or any of the...
Use the rail as a case study to explain why is this phenomenon of systematic cost overruns and systematic benefit shortfalls happening to mega projects. Everybody clear on the question? Could we have a loud yes? Yes. Louder? Yes. Good. Over to you. Would the lady on table 11 like to join a group here? Or others? Please talk amongst yourselves. Hi. So we're starting with you, you know. Help each other.
So the cost overrun is nominal or real?
This is real. Cost overrun is real. Thoughts, gents? Hi. So if you give the mic to that lady over there, we'll start with her.
For rail or is it any?
Any. I mean, it's a phenomenon we're trying to explain.
Because for rail is probably less.
Less problematic. It's more problematic or for rail.
The other ones are ego-driven, most of the projects. Individual organizations.
No, that's good. Right, 2 more minutes. How are we doing on time? No, how are we doing on time? Can I have my time on the screen? Can I have time on the screen? Can I have time on the screen? On the TV? No, I want to see the time. How much time I've got left? Okay. 20 minutes. Okay, so we'll have the lady on table 15. Why is this happening? Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to volunteer? Would you like to kick us off? No, she's got some ideas. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Why are these projects being so, if you give her the microphone, why are so many projects disastrous? These rail projects are meant to be a good thing, but they're not delivering.
I'll take a crack at it.
Yeah.
I'll take a crack at it. One might be, you assess the project at the beginning.
Yes.
You can't really, let's just use the tunnel, for example. You assess, you start, you win the contract, you start it, you get to the middle, and you as a contractor hold the company for ransom and say, hey, I assessed it, I ran it, there's some hiccups, I need better machineries, I need et cetera, et cetera.
So there's some kind of a hold up in the process.
Right. So didn't have, maybe there's unforeseen, like the tools couldn't break a certain rock. I don't know, just,
So stuff happens.
Yeah.
Stuff happens.
stuff happens.
And then the contractor can hold the sponsor to ransom.
Yeah, once you start, I mean,
Once the
once you have the
tender's done,
contract,
competition is gone, they've pretty much got you, and they can do whatever they like. So that's one explanation. Yep. What sort of view of human nature has he presented? Not the nicest view, which is why this is but
Prime example of LNG construction in Australia.
right.
Um,
Would it fit the same pattern, or is it different from rail?
very similar, perhaps not quite as big blowout,
Right.
but Gorgon estimated, the first estimation of feed was 12 billion.
Yep.
They passed FID at 32 billion,
Yep.
and they're currently admitting 52 billion.
Yeah.
More likely to be, but at the end of the third train, 65 billion.
Yep. So
And
something
the-
that started at 12 billion will end up at 65 billion.
Yeah, and it's bad estimating, bad planning. A lot of it was bad construction management.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Gorgon, it was a joint venture of four companies,
Mm-hmm.
and they were interfighting.
Right. So whereas in the first instance the gentleman pointed out that the contractor could hold the sponsor to ransom, in this case this sounds more like bad technical management, bad planning, and infighting among the consortium. Slightly different explanation, but a very similar phenomenon. So that's very good. Other thoughts? Table 4 here. Say it out loud and I'll repeat it for you. Bad modelers. So people who did not do their job very well up front. What could good modeling look like? Financial modeling, unless you get other ideas.
Just get more, involve more factors that
Such
can
a-
affect the cost in your model.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might give you a more proper estimate of the cost and ridership.
Do you think would a $12 billion project that has become 65 billion, would that difference be resolved by better modeling?
Maybe they didn't model the costs. Maybe they were just too over-optimistic on the cost side, on their modeling. I don't know.
Over-optimist, I like that word. Gentleman here, table 4.
A political over-optimism.
Oh, right, please explain that.
People like big projects.
Right,
Therefore,
why?
They like to look at, because they look good. Politicians look good. They
Right.
want to look good. They want to leave a legacy.
Mhm.
Therefore, they approve projects they know won't happen.
Yes.
So it's got their name on it.
Right.
And they take the optimistic view. They ignore the pessimistic. They haven't spoken to you and looked at all of your data.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that everything happens down in the disaster area. Or they did know, they ignored it because they wanted to happen.
Right. So we're now coming up with a variety of, Raghu, did you have a point?
Well, I think part of it is sometimes when you do this forecasting, especially traffic forecasting, you don't do it comprehensively.
Yes.
For example, in a rail case, you make a forecast for the rail, and at the same time, there's a road being built in parallel, and that's not included.
Yes, so it's not
therefore
dynamic.
You face this situation.
Absolutely. And in worst case scenarios, it's reversed engineered. So you figure out what the road costs, and you figure out how many people need to be on it for it to be viable, and from that you work back how many people you should put in your business case will use that road. So it has nothing to do with reality. It has just everything to do with how you make the numbers look good. And it's a famous case of AECOM being held guilty for that in Australia with the Australian toll roads. Comment here?
So in real life, I haven't seen sort of very good business case. It's
Mhm.
always that what you see is a rosy picture.
Yeah?
Because that's the tendency of people. If you are on this, you are trying to calculate the NPV, of course, you do your best just to deliver a very good NPV.
Exactly.
But I think also when you're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about what, 10 years project?
Yes?
How you can predict 10 years?
Yep.
Just to predict tomorrow is already difficult for the business plan. And now
Yep.
10 years, I think it's only God that knows what happened for 10 years.
Yeah.
With the current situation, economic, that can change very fast. So how you capture all of this in your assumption, that make basically quite a very high risk on the business.
So gentleman's made 2 points here. One is that in order to get a business case approved, you have to make it look good. So you do your very best, in his words, to make the NPV, the net present value, as good as and as high as possible. And that's where there's a little bit of cooking of number goes in. But the other point, which is a little bit different, is that even if you're not cooking the numbers, it's just very, very difficult. You have no way of predicting what the cost, what the exchange rate of the rupiah might be against the US dollar 5 years out, and how might that affect the cost of your German imported equipment. And it's very difficult to enter a hedge against that. So, in summary, to summarize, thank you very much. By the way, a round of applause for everybody who's contributed. The key thing is we can actually understand these problems with conversation. You know, it's difficult stuff, but by talking about it, we can begin to unpack these very difficult issues. So some of the contributions are more technical in nature. So gentlemen here, better modeling, better data, or better management can partly help solve this issue. One thing we do notice in our data is that developing countries tend to do worse in delivery of infrastructure than developed countries for like project. Not as a general trend, but like-for-like project. And what we see this as a proxy for is that countries with higher per capita income just have slightly greater project management capability than countries with lower project management and per capita income. So technical, better modeling, and better management are certainly parts of this puzzle. But they are not the panacea. They can't solve it all. Another part of the puzzle is what the gentleman also called over-optimism. Psychologically, people like to believe that the future will be rosy. It's the only way we get out of our beds. We like to believe that the world is going towards betterment. And that's innate in all manner of animals, not just human beings. We need that. Finally, is this very dicey issue of cooking in numbers. Actually, I shouldn't say finally, because there's the other final thing is the entropy, the uncertainty over long time horizons, which is innate to mega projects simply because they take a long time to implement. So there's sort of 4 reasons that we have teased out. I'm going to focus on 2 for now, and then come back to them when we discuss the good news. What do you see there? It's a little kitten, very cute. What does it perceive itself to be? A snow leopard, roaring over the Himalayas, right? So do you recognize this pattern in organizations? Organizations and individuals tend to have a poor self-assessment of their own capabilities and disabilities. And optimism and overconfidence are very innate human characteristics. They're quite innocent. They're not lying. It's just a form of delusion we need in order to keep living, and that's fine. But that means your biggest risk is you. Cost overruns are not cost overruns. You just underestimated the cost. So don't fool yourself into thinking that some external risk is causing all of this issue. You just did not take into account the true nature of reality. Your plan was a straight line, whereas all previous instances of reality had been a very jagged valley. So just keep that in mind, that your innate optimism could be coming in the way. So give you a very quick example. Which of these 2 lines is longer? But what if I have made the lower one purposefully longer?